as we move closer towards the playoffs and everything starts to be clear on who's in and who's out, there is one question on everyone's mind. What the heck happened last week? No, seriously, what happened last week? What's going on, guys? Dick Support here, back to another video, and today we're going through my Week 15 picks. And as I had mentioned, the battle for these playoff spots are getting even more intense than we thought. It is so much fun to watch. Let chaos reign supreme. This has been such a fun season. Alright, enough on that. Let's get right into these games, which include count them, three Saturday games. First, we need to start with our Thursday night game. Chargers, Raiders for the Chargers. Major hit. Justin Herbert out for the season. He had to have surgery on his index finger, so he's not playing football anymore this year. That's a big loss for the Chargers. That's just had a rough season. Meanwhile, for the Raiders, it's been an up and down season for them. Had to fire Josh McDaniels. That had to be done. Rose up a little bit, but just not enough. I'm going to go with the Raiders over the Chargers on this one. Our first of three Saturday games, Minnesota taking on Cincinnati. For Minnesota, 3-0. Really? Last time I saw that was back in 2007, and that's because the Dolphins and Steelers were playing in a monsoon. How does that happen? No, seriously, how does that happen? And for Cincinnati, they took care of business against the Colts, really dominated that second half. Jake Browning filled in nicely for Joe Burrow, but then he got hurt, so now A.J. McCarron stepped in. Now for Browning, I have no idea if he's going to play or not. Haven't seen any updates. We'll see about that. Even if he doesn't play, I'm still going with the Bengals. I'm not trusting Minnesota after only scoring 3 points last week. Pittsburgh taking on Indianapolis. Speaking of the team that Cincinnati beat, Indianapolis, they had a golden opportunity last week to move into a tie with the Jaguars since they lost, and they couldn't take advantage of it. Now, they're still in the playoffs if they would start today, but they have to keep building wins. And for Pittsburgh, it's been a rough last two games for them, losing to the Cardinals and the Patriots. And we still don't know when Kenny Pickett's going to be back. However, I'm still going to go with them over the Colts. I say their defense gets the job done after a rough last 2 weeks. Denver taking on Detroit. Speaking of a rough week, Detroit lost to Chicago. And really, Chicago dominated them from the very beginning. It was not a pretty game last week. And for Denver, they're just doing a good job winning games. They won last week against the Chargers. I say they get it done against Detroit. I say they win this game. Atlanta taking on Carolina. Atlanta, they had an opportunity to move ahead in the division, but they lost to the Buccaneers. And for Carolina, well, the less said about them, the better. One win, and Chicago has their first round pick. That's all I need to say. I'm just going to go with the Falcons and move on. Chicago taking on Cleveland. For Chicago, that was a great win against Detroit. Justin Fields is really playing good football, and it's going to be a hard decision for the Bears to make if he continues to play like this. Now comes a true test. Cleveland's defense is for real. They got the win last week against Jacksonville. They really gave Trevor Lawrence a hard time last week. And for Jacksonville, they just could not complete the comeback because that defense did its job at the end of the game. I'm going to go with the Browns on this one, but if Justin Fields can do well against this defense, again, it's going to make the Bears' decision a lot harder in the offseason. Buccaneers taking on the Packers. For the Packers, what happened on Monday night? How do the Giants always do this to you? Seriously, how are they always doing this to you? I mean, their playoff hopes took a big hit with that loss to the Giants on Monday night. For the Buccaneers, they are still in the fight for the division following that win against the Falcons. Really, first team to 8 is probably going to win this division if I'm being quite honest. I'm going with the Packers over the Bucs. I say the Packers rebound. Really with the Bucs, I don't know what team you're going to get week in and week out. I don't. Jets taking on the Dolphins in another weird game. How did the Jets score 31 points in the second half and Zach Wilson had a great game against the Texans? How did that happen? Seriously, last week was so weird. But, I mean, that's good for Zach Wilson. He played a great game. Maybe he can build off of that. Maybe not. I don't know. For the Dolphins, they lost to the Titans. They had a 2-score lead with 3 minutes to go, and they somehow lost the game. I don't know how either. I'm going to go with the Dolphins. I say they rebound. Giants taking on the Saints. Saints, they got to win. They are in a 3-way tie for that NFC South division with the Bucs and the Falcons. Again, I feel like the first team to 8 wins is going to win this division. Meanwhile, for the Giants, I don't know how they're still fighting. I don't know how they're doing it. But that win Monday night against the Packers, yeah, that was impressive. That really was impressive. Do they get it done this week? I don't think so. I'm going to go with the Saints. Texans taking on Titans. For the Texans, just like with the Colts, they could not take advantage of the Jaguars' loss. I already mentioned it. Wasn't pretty against the Jets. It really wasn't. And C.J. Stroud is in the concussion protocol. We'll see if he can pass in time for this game. And for the Titans, I mean, that was a great come-from-behind victory. It truly was a great come-from-behind victory against the Dolphins. They could play spoiler to somebody. Maybe it's the Texans. I don't think so. I'm going to go with the Texans on this one, but watch out for the Titans. Kansas City taking on New England. Imagine just a few years ago, this would have been considered the game of the year. Now it's not. Patriots, I mean, they just had a rough season. They got a good win against the Steelers, but this has been a rough season all around. And for the Chiefs, they have lost 2 in a row. This is a get-right game. Don't mess this up, Kansas City. Get this victory. San Francisco taking on Arizona. For Arizona, they're coming off a bye. For San Francisco, they're fighting for the number 1 seed. Basically, if San Francisco wins the rest of their games, they have the number 1 seed. And they have a good chance to do it. I mean, they look like the best team in the NFL right now. They just look unstoppable. So yeah, I'm going with them over Arizona. I don't know who can take them down right now. Washington taking on the Rams. Washington was the other team that had a bye last week. And for the Rams, tough way to lose on a punt return for a touchdown in overtime. That was rough. But the Rams have been playing better football towards the second half of the season. As for Washington, Dan Snyder may be gone, but there's still a ways to go before this team is back to where they were before he was the owner. I'm going to go with the Rams over the Commanders. Dallas taking on Buffalo. Both these teams, they got big wins last week for Buffalo. Got the win over Kansas City, back in the playoff race at 7-6, tied with a bunch of other teams. They just got to keep winning. For Dallas, they got a big win over Philadelphia. Now they're tied with them for the division lead. Basically, if Dallas can win the rest of their games and Philadelphia loses one more time, Dallas has the division. And they're in a fight for that number 1 seed as well with the 49ers. Again, when the rest of their games, 49ers lose one, I mean, you could see the Cowboys as the number 1 seed. That's how crazy this season has gone. So yeah, I'm going with them over the Bills. I'm going with the Cowboys. Baltimore taking on Jacksonville. Jacksonville, I had mentioned, tough loss against Cleveland. They're lucky that both the Texans and Colts lost as well. They still have the division lead, but they cannot afford another slip-up like that. And for Baltimore, wow, that was a pretty good win. An amazing play, and what an amazing game, too. That was a great game. The offense was just firing on all cylinders. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about this game. This is big. Baltimore right now has the number 1 seed in the AFC. If they win 3 out of 4 with one of those wins coming against Miami, they have it. So it all starts here. Can Baltimore get this done, or can Jacksonville recover? And I say Jacksonville recovers. Give me the Jaguars. And our Monday night game is Philadelphia and Seattle. Both these teams, they need to get right game. For Seattle, they need a win to keep their playoff hopes alive. And for Philadelphia, they have lost 2 straight to the 49ers and the Cowboys, and those games weren't even close. I'm going to go with Philadelphia over Seattle on this one. Alright guys, those were my picks for Week 15. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. And as always, I'll see you guys next time.